Allez, on va commencer par Veja. Donc, je fais du
Let's
placement
start
de produit.
with Veja.
C'est ce que j'ai au pied.
This is what I have on my feet. This is what I'm wearing. This is my footwear, Quitterie's footwear. Okay, this is an advertisement, but I pay them. There's no conflict of interest. I know him very well, but he doesn't make a presence now. I hope maybe next time I'll have a pair of shoes free. Veja, when you live in a small world, this is you have the impression everybody knows it because in the 10th arrondissement in Paris, half the people wear Veja shoes. And tens of thousands of people who wear these shoes, but it's not very well known necessarily beyond this area. Can you present the brand and its characteristic? But because these are very different shoes.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello. We founded Veja when we were 25 years in 2004. It was a fairly crazy adventure. There was a hope. We didn't know what would become of this enterprise. We worked for big companies. I won't quote them. Some of them are partners to the Positive Economic Forum. They're good companies that. And for 1 year, we traveled the world in Vietnam, India, China, Brazil, to study sustainable development projects by these major companies. We were disappointed by what we saw, but it was very interesting. We studied the relationship between the local population, NGOs, and the companies, and we thought the world had become crazy, meaning that globalization was there. There was no denying it. It existed. And we'd been lucky enough to come from well-off families, to go to the university, and we wanted to try something different. We wanted to embark onto something different, to try and highlight the word we would have liked to see come to light. All our friends were working either in the internet economy or in banking with a lot of money, and we were thinking, no, what we want to do is something different. We want to start from scratch again and recreate from scratch a product by deconstructing the economic chain of the product and by rebuilding it at each of the steps by adding social value added, economic and environmental value added. So you chose shoes. It could have been. I heard you had thought about boxer shorts too, but it's not so easy to see boxer shorts in everyday life. You wanted to make this a demonstration project. It is because these shoes are very symbolic shoes at several levels. It is the product in our generation. I'm 38 years of age. We massified the consumption of basket shoes. We got out of. We started using them in our everyday life, not only when playing sports. It also shows the domination of southern countries by northern countries. 99% of these shoes are produced in China, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, in appalling environmental and social conditions. So we thought it was a good product to try and rebuild something. And from an economic point of view, it is the product in the world that attracts the highest number of advertisements. So because 70 to 80% of the price of these running shoes is accounted for by the advertisement costs, and only 10 to 20% by the real production costs. So we thought of running shoes with a natural rubber, organic cotton, raw materials that would be produced in socially acceptable conditions. there is we were working with companies that would respect their workers, and we knew nothing about running shoes, but we laid them apart and we rebuilt them, trying to add something good every time. Now we are talking about active consumers. You need to tell conventional consumers that when they buy Nike or Adidas, for example, I think Greenpeace says that when you wear these shoes, you wear about 30 chemical products such as lead and other thing. Well, here I have ethical rubber, organic cotton. Didn't you feel like saying to buy Veja means to buy purity? To buy Veja shoes? No, this is no. First of all, because it's not true. There are a number of constraints and limits to our project. Overconsumption is one of them. People tell us, "Yeah, that's fantastic. I bought 4 Veja, 4 pairs of running shoes, and I'm so respecting the environment." No, 2 pairs of shoes is enough. And secondly, we felt very militant. We felt that we were real protectors of the environment, and either we chose to say no and we joined Greenpeace and a fairly radical organization that say no and that criticize and have a very important role to play nowadays. But we decided to say yes. We decided to be positive and make proposals, and we didn't want to be only criticizing and be these other companies. We want to create projects that are as socially and ecologically clean as possible. But this is a never-ending path. We have a lot to do. For example, the laces on our shoes are made out of conventional cotton because we don't have sufficient volume yet to produce them from organic cotton. So Veja, it's between 70 and 80%. 90% of its economic composition is linked with an ecological, with an environmental commitment, a social commitment. It's good, but we can even get further. Now, apart from the running shoes, there are a couple of places in Paris where Veja teams work. I don't know how many of you are working there, 40 to 45 in your company. How do you get virtues? Does that mean your 45 members of staff are not buying their electricity from EDF and are not buying from Enercop? Or well, we realized that we'd created a virtuous product, difficult to understand for the public at large because it's complicated, and this is the problem Arthur found with collaborative economy. These are complex things to convey. We saw that in the morning. Less Hegelian philosophy. So we realized we could create a company with a clean product while remaining idiots. You can have a fantastic product and still work within a company that's not treating its workforce very well. We realized that in 2007, and the next step is to try and create the company where you love working and to apply to ourselves so we had a different bank, Crédit Coopératif. We work with the bread. We went over to Enercop. It's the French ecological project as far as I'm concerned. They're competitive EDF. They started off with 3,000 to 4,000 subscriptors, and they have 10 times more right now. What Arthur was saying in the morning was very interesting. The change of scale, we don't care about it. It's as human beings, we do what we can in a positive way. But the change in scale, the impact over 100,000 people, 200,000 people. We don't care. We are going step by step, brick by brick. The coolest thing is to be happy every day in what we do at our level without wanting to be Nike or Adidas. We don't want this. We want Veja to grow in a sustainable way. We've refused a number of investors. From the beginning, we didn't want to be bought up by big brands because we've put a lot of ourselves in our company in Veja. And to answer your question, our workforce, there are about 40 of us in Paris. We all are different. We all have our way to think. And some of us are very committed, others not really, others not at all. And the objective is to live in the same world.
Alors, Laure Drévillon, avant de vous demander ce que vous avez pensé de...
Laure Drévillon, before I asked you what you thought about Sébastien's, sorry, he could be on OneHeart. He is and has been for a long time. Can you tell us about your platform, with the objective of which is to do what he doesn't want to do? That's to say, to highlight these environmentally and socially respectful projects. Veja, I don't know whether Sébastien knows about it, but he's been on OneHeart.fr for a very long time. Our objective is to use video as a means to inform. The video is the most widely consumed source of information in the internet, and we suggest ways to act to the people on the internet. We created an application that's OneHeart's Spot, which gives importance to people like Sébastien, which means that we support committed company. We tell you why it's better to go to this restaurant than to another one. Every address is linked with a responsible and solidarity-based action, and this is what can help consumers to become active consumers and to act on the basis of solidarity. Now, there are temptation to look virtuous, and you know about greenwashing, social washing, but if close to my apartment I see biscuits by Michel et Augustin and I put them on OneHeart and I say it's virtuous, although there's palm oil and they're not such a socially responsible company, what happens? Who makes the decision? Now, we're not highlighting products, we're highlighting people, communities. We have a community around the OneHeart Spot that spots everyday people. And Melanie is here and checks every spot and checks the way these people work. Is they really environmentally responsible? So we will not highlight a product. We highlight an address where you can get information. And we establish a link between what's virtual and what's real. All our references are checked, and the people sign an ecologically responsible charter. Right now we have 10,000 spots from 18 categories. Beauty, we have this Spa dans le Noir. This is a beauty center where handicapped women work. They have an impaired vision, and they have developed a very strong sense of touch. And so we try to cover everything that's social good, the environment, and we take over also people who are among the less privileged people, and we discover treasures every day. So Sébastien is fairly well known, but there are other adventures that are less well known. And you can see a number of spotted actors here. You can see local Le Havre people who every day in their place contribute to this alternative economy. Two questions in one. When you want to be a responsible consumer, it's difficult. Sorry, but you're turning your back on Quitterie.
C'est compliqué, c'est-à-dire qu'on voit bien que
Yes, it's
Sébastien,
difficult.
s'il écoutait ses principes,
Sebastian,
il
if
aurait
he
une seule banque qui serait
listened to his principle, he would only have the Crédit Coopérative as his bank, but since they don't work internationally, he needs HSBC, so it's difficult to be virtuous. No, it's not difficult to be virtuous. No, it's not when you have the right information. No, it's not difficult. If you blast your mental barriers, it's easy. Enercop, when you buy your electricity from Enercop, which we buy our electricity from at home in our shops, it's 30% more expensive than EDF. I meet them and they give me an idea and I say to the whole Veja team, we are going to get, we buy our electricity to a company that is 30% more expensive. But the objective is to pay less than what we used to pay to EDF. That means that every time we switch on a computer, a telephone charger, switch on the light, it's 30% more expensive. So we need to try and reduce our consumption by 30 or 50% if we can to make up for this increase in tariff, which becomes something fun. And we are not being very well. So right now there's only 12% difference between Enercop and EDF, which means Enercop is bringing its prices down. No, it's EDF that's increasing its prices. We want to talk to all types of people who are not as well informed as your people. But it's very difficult to be environmentally responsible in all you do. All of us, we see 1,500 advertisements every day. How can you make out what really corresponds to the way you want to consume? So we try to encourage people to go and get their groceries from the shop next door because it's socially responsible, trying to work with deprived people. But of course, the idea is that socially responsible consumption develops first of all in big cities. But if we look at the OneHeart map, are there still white areas? You're saying there's a huge development in Le Havre. What about the Creuse département or the Limousin area? But there are a number of associations to promote traditional agriculture and ecologically responsible agriculture. I'm not as pessimistic as Arthur is. But the people who are in change are very locally rooted. They are not the big companies. The big companies, the big brands are really lagging far behind. These changes are going through small entrepreneurs all over the place, and that's what's cool about it. And we are really awed at the number of fantastic initiatives all around, and all of us are actors in this change right now. Now, we'll talk about activism, but as far as active consumption is concerned, consommation, what are the areas where it's easiest to change your way to consume? Banking is difficult. No, it's not difficult in banking. Traditional banks make you believe it's very difficult to change a bank, but it's very easy. No, okay, let's be cool about it. I listened to you. I went to see the NEF. For each euro savings you have, it is invested in your responsible product. I'm in a non-virtuous bank, and I tried to, and I said, okay, I'm going to open accounts here. What can we do? They say, no, we have no banking card and no checkbooks, and we have no agency in Paris. But okay, maybe I'm too impatient, but I thought it was making things a bit difficult. I go to my bakery and say, no, don't worry, I'll make a SWIFT transfer to you. No, NEF is almost a subsidiary of Crédit Coopérative. There are links between them if you If you have an credit card, it's a credit card from the Crédit Coopératif. Maybe you were too much in a hurry, as usual, and didn't get the information right. But we can do it right after this session, and we can call them together. But I'm telling you, you can have a credit card. There are bank transfers, and then you get all you want. But for companies, it's easy. Of course, for the cleaning of our premises, you take people from Plus Que Parfait, which is a company that works with environmentally friendly products and it has an inclusive policy for its workforce. But on short circuits, beauticians go onto a hard spot, and you see tons of good examples. It's an easy way to work. The internet, although we're not rich, enables us to spread information. It also has an impact on our environment. Eat organic. 9 out of 10 French people occasionally eat organic food, which is much more than it used to be a couple of years. We don't want to produce organic for the sake of organic, but we know it will contribute to reducing floods in France, for example. But there are things that are difficult to tell consumers today. Maybe you pay a bit more, but consequences are much less heavy. No, you don't pay more. No, I'm sorry. This is quite a cliché, honestly. If you go to a conventional supermarket, a big supermarket, and look at tomatoes, and there are organic tomatoes and conventional tomatoes. If you put a video there, I don't know how much a kilo of tomato costs. Okay, €2 for conventional tomatoes and €2.60, that's more to 30% for organic tomatoes. They say, yes, it's more expensive. But if you have a video there about the way they are grown, the conventional and the organic tomatoes, you see a guy or a woman you don't know because they'd be covered with a white overall spreading pesticides 6 to 8 times on conventional tomatoes, while the organic tomatoes are grown without pesticides. You will find that in the end these conventional tomatoes are going to seem very expensive to you when you take into account the way they are grown and the negative externalities, the negative consequences over the planet, over the men and women who grow them. These people, they run risks. They have risks to their health. And once these pesticides are spread, they get into the soil with rain. So you have to think about what is expensive. What is expensive? Is an iPhone expensive? Who has a smartphone in this room? 90% of the people in this room have smartphones. Is a kilo organic tomato expensive? Get back to the price. This is important, but take into account the real price of things. If you take into account negative externalities and positive externalities of products, and if you include them in the cost, then everything looks different. That's it, exactly. But for the consumer, the normal consumer, they are just going to compare prices and they won't get into the depth of things. This is why in OneHeart we try to show these externalities. Major brands have no choice. We're talking about smartphones. I think that nowadays, when you know what's the duration of a smartphone, it's a pure scandal. So we try to help the consumers to be environmentally responsible, fighting against inbuilt obsolescence, and trying to be as ecologically, as environmentally responsible as possible. A pair of Veja, it's 5 to 7 times more expensive to produce than a pair of shoes from a major brand because we have developed new material, 100% from recycled plastic bottles, organic cotton. So it's 5 to 7 times more expensive to produce. And when you go to the shops, they're 5% more expensive than a comparable pair of running shoes from a major brand. Stan Smith, it's 85 to 90 euros, while ours is 90 euros. So when you talk about running shoes, I know the production costs for the major brands. I can tell you they are extremely expensive if you take into account their production costs.
In terms of price, and then I'll stop talking. What's really important and what makes me feel very optimistic today is that there are lots of people who are getting linked. Organic, fair trade, reinsertion. Thanks to these social networks, thanks to events like this one, we meet, so we see each other. Everyone is becoming interlinked. And what we find is that there is a global transparency which is arriving in economics, in politics. With a smartphone, a worker in a factory in Vietnam can film things, put it on YouTube, and 5 minutes later there may be 4 million people who've seen it. Transparency is something that I believe strongly in. It can also be negative, but it's really happening. It's swamping the world. That's why big companies are becoming a bit scared. Our economy is based not on lies, but on artifice. For the past 50 years, communication has taken over from reality. Advertising has taken precedence over reality. The big brands today, be they in food, in textiles, or in production, energy, and so on, these big brands no longer want to know how they produce things. They haven't done this for the past 50 years. They show you Michael Jordan scoring a goal, beautiful models who are very pretty and who are photoshopped as well. That's what they show you. But they don't show you how they actually make things. They hide industry, they hide farming in the cupboard. And in fact, have turned them into something horrible. If consumers, if citizens saw how goods were being made, then people would stop buying them. Half of them, at least, would stop buying. And I think, therefore, this kind of situation belongs to the past. It dates from the 1950s, 2010. But now people have much more information. You can't hide much anymore. Even the Minister for the Budget can't hide his accounts in Singapore. Emmanuel Macron found it hard to pay the wealth tax in 2014-2015. Companies, politicians have an outdated software, and I'm really happy to see what's changing. And the future depends on us. It doesn't depend on major brands, politicians you see on TV. It hinges on what we're going to do in our daily lives, in our families, in our companies, amongst our friends, what we do as consumers. We're not just consumers. And we can try and change things. We have, each and every one of us, this intrinsic power, and we have to be aware of it and use it and shoulder our responsibility. Thank you.
Quitterie de Villepin, merci d'avoir attendu.
Thank you very much, Quitterie de Villepin. He's very optimistic, isn't he? He's optimistic about transparency on the internet. 96% of screens in France are controlled by just a couple of millionaires. Yet we have the internet to issue warnings when things go astray. A couple of years ago, 2,300 people died in a building that collapsed, and the next day, as a mother,
Tu vas chercher dans tes placards pour voir si
you
les
rummage
étiquettes de
through
tes
your
enfants,
cupboards
les étiquettes des vêtements de tes enfants contiennent
to
le sang des ouvriers du Rana Plaza et tu ne trouves pas la
see
réponse. Et ça te
whether
fait de
the
tu lances une vaste
brand
campagne
name
sur
on
tous
the
les
clothing
textes
bore the
politiques.
name Rana Plaza, in other words, was covered in the blood of the workers who died. Rana Plaza, well, for a couple of years now, I've looked at the textile industry and the impact of what we do on countries making what we have in our cupboards. At the time of the Rana Plaza, there had been a number of deadly accidents in Bangladesh, and I was following this thanks to a number of entities on the internet. Rana Plaza, that's 1,138 people who died. But in Boston, 3 people died in the terrorist attacks, and there all the TV channels monitored things and followed it up much more closely. With Rana Plaza, you open your cupboard, what do you see? Made in Bangladesh. Camailleux, Benetton, Mango, Auchan. We see all these brands, and these brands, that's us. And finally, a journalist wrote an article which said that Bangladesh, the frontier of globalization, but in fact it's us, it's what we wear. But nothing's happening. So I said to myself, well, you have the Bhopal accident, for example. That was the biggest industrial accident in our era. And in the textile industry, it was Rana Plaza. Are we going to have to wait for another, even more deadly accident? What is the threshold for dead people which will get people going? There is a movement, however, that is growing. The media don't talk about it, but people go and ask the brands about what they do. We have a new lever. If you're not happy with a company in the past, you had to write to the consumer service. Now, the internet offers us a powerful tool, a real opportunity. There are risks, of course, but this gives us the opportunity to really communicate, to speak with people. You talked about advertising. Advertising is just a message people throw at our face. Now, you have the social networks, and you can start talking with the company as a client. You can become active. With Rana Plaza, there were Italians, Spaniards, there were Arabs. People were putting the question to Primark, were you in Rana Plaza? What are you going to do about it? Primark is the only company that said we were directly involved, we're going to set up a compensation fund, etc. The other brands denied. They said, well, it wasn't me. H&M denied. H&M wasn't in Rana Plaza. H&M is in lots of places in Bangladesh and in the world, but they weren't in Rana Plaza. So all these other companies denied, the brands denied that they were there. Yet, with the internet, you can wield quite a lot of power as a consumer. So you don't have to be passive in the face of information or disinformation on Fukushima, the nuclear industry, Rana Plaza. You can become active. You can choose what you want to buy. You can choose how you want to use your money in order to nurture certain principles. Also, the power play, not with politicians, but with those who make these goods, has changed. We are real players. I feel jointly responsible with Auchan. I am their customer, and if I'm their customer, I can ask them to render accounts. The counterpart is that when there's a problem, you have to feel co-responsible. You are helping to keep the system going. Okay, you're a mom on the internet, you write to people. Certain brands will answer you. I was called in by Auchan. It was a bit tense. I don't need their money. I don't work for them. And I wanted to say what I thought. At Auchan, like with other big companies, you have men and women, human beings, who are trying to do their best. They don't want to feel shameful. If I feel shameful about what I bought because there's been a disaster, well, it's terrible. Well, what if you're working for a company and you see what's happening? You're not going to feel proud or happy to work for that company. So what I'm trying to say, you talked about politics and parties and their stupid programs and ridiculous promises. In fact, everything we do, everything we buy is a kind of policy. We need to say to companies when we buy their products, well, this kind of thing should not happen anymore. It's up to us to say, what are your labor conditions? How do you make these things? And companies in Rana Plaza finally paid money into the compensation fund. They kept saying, well, we're not involved, but we will give money. And that was done thanks to the huge amount of work done by NGOs, and this finally led to other agreements. Fashion. Some people feel it's futile. If you were in the other room, yesterday you heard Manon Aubry from Oxfam, and at the beginning of the year, Oxfam said, well, just a tiny percentage of the world holds 97% of the wealth of the world. There are two industries involved, finance with high-frequency trading and fashion, which forces wages down. There was someone who loved Veja at the time, but it wasn't very good because there was an over-consumption in fashion. Isn't that the main problem? There's so many kind of throwaway T-shirts. Maybe we should agree that we should all have less clothes. It's not that is it that complicated to tell people to have less clothes? Because people like changing their T-shirts.
Non, je m'en fous, je prends le micro. C'est juste une phrase. C'est un type qui a écrit.
Just one sentence. Some guy wrote not long ago that 98% of the clothing bought from fast fashion brands are no longer worn 9 months later. 98% of the clothes are no longer worn 9 months later. They're either in the cupboard or in the rubbish bin. That's an impressive figure. Is that the real issue? The real issue is the way you look at yourself in the looking glass. Do I feel really happy to spend my time shopping, filling up my cupboards and drawers with stuff I'll never wear, instead of being a slave of one's impulse of buying? Shouldn't one try to do things differently? Look for something that's really beautiful, that's made properly, and that makes you feel proud. If you switch on your electricity, you know it's it's not nuclear based. That can make you feel really happy. It's a source of pleasure. You can say, well, I fully assume the impact I'm having. It's the result of my choice as a consumer. And the opposite situation is crazy. There's a TV program. Well, I'm happy that you see this on state TV. There are certain things you need to see time and again, because people tend to give up. People tend to forget. They say, oh, well, it's just shitty. It's too tough. Of course, that is an ideal. Consume less and better. But you have to contend with the reality of life. You say that 98% of the clothes we buy end up in the rubbish bin or are not worn anymore. So what should one do? You can recycle the clothes. This will make it possible to have the kind of fashion show we saw with La Croix last night. That's what being a player behind change means. You can change reality. You can foster the circular economy, the solidarity-based economy. We'll not become saints overnight, but there are things we can do. Recycling, for example, is one of the ways of helping. providing it's sincere, providing what you throw out doesn't end up in Africa and kill off the local market. Sometimes what we throw out ends up killing off local entrepreneurship. We need to be virtuous while being consumers at the same time. I don't know whether you know Mamie Régal. That's an association. It's really tiny. These are two young girls who help very isolated elderly people, and they realized that these elderly people were fabulous at cooking. And they created an association, and these elderly people make their special dishes and sell them to companies or on the local market. That's created a real sharing economy, a very virtuous one. I think there are a lot of initiatives here and there which are very positive and which are based on a different way of being a consumer. And that's how I think we can ourselves become real players in change. Just a few words before we wind up. We've talked about local things which work well, but big companies don't want to die off. They fully understood that what's virtuous sells well. Sébastien Kopp will be talking about this. In 2003, the CEO of Nike said that 100% of Nike shoes would be 100% organic by 2012. In 2002, Nike announced that by 2012, 100% of their T-shirts, sweatshirts and stuff, would be made with organic cotton. And that's incredible. T-shirts, that's 40% of their turnover. It's a lot. And 2012, what was the result? 198%? I don't have the exact figure, but I think it was 1.2%. So that's nearly the same figure. So over and above Nike, if you look around, Renault's going to explain that they're going to be making cars with recycled parts. And I think they do this in part. Everyone is saying that they'll be using green energies and so on. So access to information is ever more important. Do you believe in the commitment made by these big companies which say they're going to change from A to Z? Are there any that have really done this? It's quite political. A promise is only good for people who believe it. When we started Veja, a lot of companies started talking about sustainability at the same time too. I realized something. You have to be careful with promises. You have to be careful about the future. When people say by 2020 or 2025 we'll do this or that, when I listen to a politician or a head of a company, I prefer to hear them talking about what they have actually done. Promises are just a marketing stunt. The CEO, what a CEO says a big company will do by 2030, i.e. the company will be green, it'll be social, it'll be what have you. Well, it's great to motivate teams to say that. It's great for the image, public image of the company, the image vis-à-vis shareholders. But the person, be it a man or a woman, I think there's one woman who's the CEO of one of the leading French companies. Most CEOs are men in France. Well, these promises are a marketing stunt, and companies benefit from saying it without actually doing it, and these are often things they never do. And that made me really angry when I was younger. Now I find it funny. I find it funny to see people doing this because I think these are companies that haven't understood that they're taking consumers for fools. Now, there's much more awareness in the world, there's much more transparency, and that gives me great confidence in the future. Where did we stand 10 years ago on all these matters? Look at the difference. Today, things will change again in 10 years' time. Of course, I want big companies to change. Everyone can change. I do believe it's necessary to meet the ecological challenges in the world today. Is there a company in fashion that acts properly? I like the brand Patagonia. That's a real example. They produce in Bangladesh, but properly. Auchan and others, they have no excuses. You can work in Bangladesh. It's important to do so. We live in the same world, whether you're in Bangladesh or somewhere else, but you need to apply certain standards. In Patagonia, they say where things are made. It's necessary to do what you say and say what you do. Be this in companies or in politics, we need to move forward. So, of course, I believe with time that this can be done. Thank you very much. We're bang on time. We can take one or two questions. Go ahead. I love this workshop on the power of consumers. It's absolutely vital. Arthur was a bit pessimistic. I don't want to deny this or be pessimistic. There are very few active consumers today when it comes to overall numbers. I just want to say that what is missing here is a spokesman, not of fashion, but a representative of the leather sector and similar products and a representative of the food industry. Consumers don't want to see a certain number of things. We are manipulated by advertising, by marketing, by merchandising, and also there are traditions and customs. What's most difficult to change is dietary habits, yet this is essential. When you do evolve, you achieve, not, I would say, a spiritual awakening, but you become more aware as a citizen because you can cut back on the overconsumption of food. It amounts to about 30% in Europe and 50% in the US. About 30 or 50% of what is produced actually ends up in the rubbish. The agri-food industry pollutes a huge amount. So we are the real scandal. Yes, all of us. And I think that when you talk about the positive economy, you need to say to the players, the consumers, that things start with what you see in the supermarkets. The sixth biggest fortune in Brazil owns Kraft and all sorts of things, but the owner doesn't eat the junk he makes. Labs are interested, pharmaceutical companies are interested because they make drugs to cure people. But we have to change our habits. Things have to evolve. And I therefore think that this reaction is salutary. It's only the sort of well-off, slightly left-leaning young generation who does something, but everyone needs to leap into action. Why would you refute what was just said? It's not just the young and slightly left-leaning and well-off generation. Organic, to say that organic food is for the young and slightly left-leaning but fairly rich generation, it's not true. That's what, it's much better and more healthy to eat organic food. So I think you have to realize that people can actually eat better and for less. It's a way of feeling good. When people say organic food, it's for the others. It's not that generation. And a lot of people have started to buy food differently. 6 years ago, there were 1,800 members of Sébastien Kopp. Now there are 50,000. If you add together all the sectors, the banking sector, the energy sector, food, clothing, the media too. What do I want to finance with my money? If you add all this together, it creates a huge number of people who are now more aware and who want to choose what's done with their money. There are alternatives, and people are talking to each other in all these different fields. In the past, these were different communities, and this is growing in importance. I think look at the success of the film Demain, tomorrow. In the past, this kind of thing didn't work, but I have friends who watch the film, and it's been a real revelation. And things are really changing. And there are studies in this area which prove it. There'll be a Meet the Speaker session afterwards, but we can have one more question.
Alors, la question c'est le changement d'échelle. Parce que changer d'échelle, c'est-à-dire la croissance
Changing
pour la
scale,
croissance,
growth for the sake of growth. That's what we're trying to get rid of. We don't want to grow at all costs in a rather stupid way, like a lot of entrepreneurs who just want to increase their turnover. What we want to do is to grow in a robust way, respecting our principles, improving the company. We don't want to grow while setting aside our principles. We want to grow while constantly improving our principles. There is an issue. You talked about the slaughtering, videos that show the slaughtering of animals. Did that change the way you buy things? Do you buy 30%, 50%, 100% less meat? And is meat costly? Does it cost a lot of money? Yes, it costs quite a lot of money. So, if you apply an economic reasoning to the consumption of food, that's where people spend most, you can be more ecological and you can pay less. In other words, if you stop eating meat 4 times a week and only eat it once a week, you can then use the extra money for organic carrots, which are 30% more expensive. That's the kind of thing I want to see. You can apply an economic rationale to this new kind of behavior. The average household purchase 10 years ago was 30% food, now it's 11% food. So what's happened? We've gone from 30 to 11%. All these multimedia products have led to a huge consumption elsewhere and less on food. The main source of waste and pollution on Earth hinges on all these worthless purchases. Just a second, Quitterie is going to take the floor last, and then we can continue our discussions just next door. But we need to go on to the next roundtable on fintech. There's a new initiative, I Boycott. This brings together citizens, active consumers who talk with the brands, put pressure on them, H&M and others. It's quite clever because the power play changes, and the idea is to come together to find positive alternatives with positive externalities. So it's the idea of being a consumer altogether. So look up the initiative. I encourage you to do so. Thank you very much. I think we can give a round of applause to our speakers. In 3 minutes' time, we'll now go on to the next roundtable on fintech.